Hello, welcome to True Crime Talk. I'm Kathleen, and in this video, I am going to be talking about the Nancy Guthrie case. It is June 14th, 2026, and still to this day, this case has not been solved, at least not to the public. um, of course, Nancy Guthrie went missing February 1st of this year. On the A&E website, they have a timeline. I was going to go over it to refresh our memories about the events that took place in this case since the time it started. On January 31st, Nancy Guthrie takes an Uber to visit her daughter Annie, who lives nearby. That was at 5:32 p.m. And this is according to the A&E website's timeline of events in this case. So at 5:32 p.m., Nancy took an Uber to visit her daughter Annie, who lives nearby. At 9:48 p.m., Guthrie is dropped off at home by Annie's husband, Tommaso, and I don't know how you pronounce it, Cioni, and the garage door opens. 9:50 p.m., the garage door closes and Cioni drives away. February 1st, Nancy Guthrie's doorbell camera is disconnected at 1:47 a.m. 2:12 a.m., a person is detected tampering with security equipment. At 2:28 a.m., Guthrie's pacemaker is disconnected from her phone app, indicating that she might have been taken out of the device's range. 11 a.m., Guthrie fails to show up to a friend's home to watch a virtual church service, so they alert her family. 11:56 a.m., family members come to check on her and discover she's missing, but her phone, watch, and wallet are still in the house. Remember, this timeline, I guess, is what the legacy media, got from authorities and stuff. But some people disagree with this timeline because they think that Annie and Tommaso actually showed up at the house around 11 a.m. But according to this timeline, it was 11:56 a.m. when the family members came to check on Nancy and discovered that she was missing. So at 12:03 p.m., a 911 call is made to the Pima County Sheriff's Department. 12:15 p.m., officers arrive and discover a concerning scene, including a small trail of blood on the porch. February 2nd, so just one day later, a ransom note arrived. In a press conference, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos declares the home a crime scene and warns that Guthrie will die without vital medications for her heart condition. This is an 84-year-old lady who suffers from some physical ailments, has some physical challenges, is in need of medication that if she doesn't have in 24 hours, it could be fatal, he said. A ransom note is received via email by a local Arizona news station, and it contains info that causes authorities to take it seriously. It demands $4 million in Bitcoin by February 5th or $6 million by February 9th. It says Guthrie is safe but scared and threatens her life if the demands are not met. February 4th, the Guthrie family speaks out. Guthrie's family posts an emotional Instagram video and begs abductors for proof of life. As a family, we are doing everything that we can. We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated, Savannah said. We need to know without a doubt that she is alive and that you have her. We want to hear from you and we are ready to listen. Please reach out to us. February 5th. Cameron Guthrie, Savannah and Annie's brother, speaks in an Instagram video directly to the abductors. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out. And we need a way to communicate with you so that we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact. The FBI announces that they are offering $50,000 for info that leads to Guthrie's return. Sheriff Nanos confirms that the blood found on the porch matches Guthrie's DNA. February 7th. Savannah Guthrie, who paused working on the Today Show and pulled out of covering the 2026 Winter Olympics to focus on her mother's case, releases a video stating, "We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay." According to what retired FBI agent and hostage negotiator Lance Leasing told People, the video's cryptic language may mean that Nancy is no longer with us. Authorities are seen at Annie's home, primarily searching the garage. February 9th. The second ransom deadline passes at 5 p.m. Savannah posts a new video saying, "We believe our mom is still out there. We need your help." February 10th. Authorities release images from Guthrie's security cameras that show a masked, gloved person with a backpack tampering with the equipment outside Guthrie's door. FBI Director Kash Patel also posts a video of the suspect. After the release of the video, a man reported to be 36-year-old DoorDash delivery driver Carlos Palazuelos, and I know I pronounced that not wrong, is detained during a traffic stop in Rio Rico, Arizona, in connection to Guthrie's case. He was identified by law enforcement with electronic investigative tools, according to local station ABC 15. TMZ reports that a transaction has taken place in the Bitcoin wallet associated with the ransom notes around 5 p.m. February 11th, Palazuelos is released and says not only is he innocent, he doesn't know who Guthrie is or why he would be connected to her disappearance. Authorities also searched the Rio Rico home where he lives with his wife and mother-in-law. February 12th. The FBI increases its reward to $100,000 for info leading to Guthrie's return or an arrest, and releases a description of the suspect, a 5'9" to 5'10" tall male, average build, wearing a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack backpack in the video, a model of backpack that is sold exclusively at Walmart. Authorities explore a theory that the suspect's entire outfit is from Walmart. February 13th. As investigators search a second nearby residence, officials reveal that there was DNA found on Guthrie's property that doesn't belong to her or anyone close to her. That DNA is being tested along with the DNA found in approximately 16 gloves discovered around Guthrie's house. Oh, I didn't realize there were so many gloves found around her house. So this says 16 gloves discovered around her house. Some of those gloves were discarded by people searching for Guthrie, and after testing, none of the gloves appear to have been worn by the suspect. Oh, okay. Local police and the FBI are reportedly clashing over the case and custody of evidence like DNA. Police sent the DNA to be tested at a Florida lab before it went to the FBI's labs at Quantico, arguing that they always send their samples to the Florida lab. February 16th. Sheriff Nanos confirms that the Guthrie family members have all been cleared as suspects. Authorities deploy a device called a signal sniffer via helicopter, hoping to detect signals from Guthrie's pacemaker. And that is the end of the timeline that A&E has for this case. So here we are, June 14th, and still no arrests have been made and no person has been named as a suspect or person of interest in the case. Here's the Google Maps view of Nancy's house. So there's a lot of speculation and theories out there, but I don't know who, some people say they have sources, but you don't know exactly who their sources are and if their sources are telling them legitimate facts and stuff. So basically the only facts I'm sure of at this point, from watching all the various true crime channels and researching this case, is that Nancy definitely is missing, obviously, and she's most likely presumed to be dead. But as far as what the police are doing in this case, we really don't have any idea. However, I will say that even though Nanos supposedly, cleared the family on February 16th, I will say that even for a while there, a lot of the true crime people were backing off, accusing the family of being involved. Not all of them, but some of them. But I've noticed recently that most everybody, a lot of people are now saying the family's involved and they're not shy about speaking up about it. So I guess, people either realize that Sheriff Nanos is an idiot, so they don't trust what he says, or it could be some of these content creators who used to be police officers and detectives and stuff, they do have actual sources involved in this case, and they know that the family is still being looked at, and they are the main suspects in this case. It's just, it's kept quiet. Now, a lot of people fault Sheriff Nanos for clearing the family so early in the case, but maybe, unless he's a complete idiot, maybe he did it to take pressure and heat off the family so the family would feel comfortable and they could get more evidence against the family. For example, just purely speculating here, if Annie and Tommaso were involved in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, if they know the police are looking at them, they would not communicate about it if, they're smart. But if they think the heat is off of them and police are looking elsewhere, they might communicate about it, excuse me, either via cell phone, email, computer, or in person. And I don't know what the laws are in California or federally for the law enforcement to be able to eavesdrop on people. But I think in a case such as this, a possible homicide case, excuse me, or a kidnapping case, I think the police would have the authority or the right to get a warrant to eavesdrop on various family members if they thought a family member was involved, if they had some evidence that a family member might be involved. And so could it be that the authorities have been spying on, tracking, listening into phone conversations, or reading the emails and texts of family members who they think could possibly be involved in this case? We know that after Nancy went missing and they spoke to the family, that they did search the family's homes, and they did most likely, get their cell phones and get all the data off their cell phones, and the family probably willingly did that. So did they get some information off their tech devices that told them that they needed to look into them more, or was it all clear? So they thought, well, they have no evidence, but they're still suspicious of the family because it makes sense. The last people to see her might be involved in her disappearance, so they are still checking into the family. The family doesn't know it because they don't want the family to know it. Of course, the family would have to be idiots to not think that they were being looked at. Even if Sheriff Nanos came out and said, y'all are cleared, you'd have to be an idiot to think that the police aren't still looking at you or might consider you in the future. So let's say, even if they had nothing to do with it at all, they would understand that they probably could be possibly spied on or tracked or whatever. So maybe Sheriff Nanos just said that because I believe it's legal for police to lie in investigations, to just throw the family off to set them at ease while the police continued their investigation to investigate any and everybody who they thought might be involved in this case. And maybe Annie and Tommaso have absolutely nothing to do with this case, but Sheriff Nanos wasn't sure of that at the time, but he said that so that they could be put maybe at more ease, so they wouldn't necessarily know that the police are. And we don't know how many times the police spoke to Annie and Tommaso, like if they, got them down to the police station in an interrogation room and really, I've heard one time they gave them polygraphs, then I heard no, that county never gives polygraphs. But it was a thing at one point. They were saying they all took polygraphs, and now some true crime channels are saying no, that never happened. So I don't know what to believe in this case because we really don't have any facts other than that Nancy's missing. Now, some people I've even heard from different various true crime content creators that Savannah and the family already know that she's dead, and not like we think that she's probably dead. Like they know that authorities have already told them that she's dead and that they know who did it, but they can't arrest them just yet. That's some of what I hear, and I don't understand if they mean like just Savannah knows or the whole family knows this. Because it is odd and so weird. It's one of the main reason I always thought Tommaso and Annie had something to do with this is because they never, came out publicly or did interviews or created search parties and stuff. And Savannah, she is a lawyer. I think she used to work for Court TV and covered true crime cases. So she's not an idiot. But she is, this is her mother, so even though she's rich and famous, the police are not necessarily sharing everything with her, or it's because she's rich and famous and she knows politicians and all that. Is she being told more information? Does she know more? And is that why she's not publicly speaking out, giving out the FBI number all the time? I mean, she has, spoken out a little bit, but it's not like the focus isn't on finding Nancy anymore, it seems to me. So does she know something or does she just think something? Because even if, it's been this long, your mother's dead, you still don't have her body and nobody's been arrested yet. So it just seems like you'd still be searching for where she's at or who did something to her, what happened to her. So her not being passionate about finding her mother at this point, and it's just my opinion, it just seems that way to me. I hate to be judgmental, but it just seems to me that she's not as passionate as she could be with her resources to finding her mother. Does she suspect somebody in the family? Or have the police already told her it's not somebody in the family, but we know who it is, so just sit tight, an arrest will come eventually? Does it involve Mexico or some gang of or cartel members or something? I don't know, but from my observations from looking at the various true crime channels and what like former police officers, FBI agents, and other experts, if you want to call them that, are saying, and people who say they have sources, a lot of people are leaning, just like most of us did in the beginning, that the family is involved, that Annie and Tommaso, the ones who lived there in the same area with her and who were the ones to see her that last day, are involved in this. So maybe that's why Savannah's just, not going all crazy, because it's her family. And so she's trying to navigate her career as a high profile person on television while her mom's missing and her family might be involved. Does she suspect her family? There have been reports from true crime content creators, if not necessarily the legacy media people, that there was friction between Annie and Savannah, or at least that Annie has some jealousy towards Savannah. And there's also been talk that Annie and Tommaso have financial issues. There's been talk that it's possible that Nancy went there to Annie's house that day to discuss some financial stuff, or that day Annie asked for a loan and stuff. So I've heard all kinds of different things, but I don't know what is fact and what's not. So just in my opinion, purely speculating here from just my observations from what we do know about this case and what everybody's chattering about and what people say their sources say, I still think definitely, like I did, like from the beginning, family is involved, and it's most likely going to be Annie and Tommaso, or maybe Tommaso and not Annie. But I mean, who could really believe that? Maybe it's a conspiracy between Tommaso and some third party, and Annie had nothing to do with it. Or maybe she's suspicious, but not enough to turn on Tommaso or whatever. Maybe it's between Tommaso, Annie, and a third, possibly a fourth party. Because a lot of people don't think that Annie or Tommaso was the person at the door in the video, in the pictures. I think it's possible that was Tommaso. Some people think it could be Annie. I'm not so sure now. I do believe that it's probably a male. Could be wrong. I think it's possible it could be Tommaso, but it could also very well be somebody else, a co-conspirator. Some people think possibly like a band member of Tommaso's or some other associate of Tommaso's. I don't know. I just hope that the police do know more than what they're saying, and that even though a lot of people think Sheriff Nanos is an idiot, that he's not that dumb, that he's not blinded by the celebrity involved in this case, that he wants to solve this case in reality, no matter who did it or who's involved, and that he won't hold back or try to cover up anything for anybody. And I hope that they actually do, the police working on this case and the FBI who's helping or assisting or whatever, that they do know more than what they're saying. Maybe they have more direct evidence. They just don't want the public to know it yet. They could have more video, more pictures, more technological evidence, emails, phone calls, texts, whatever. A lot of people are saying, well, this person hasn't been caught yet, so obviously he was smart. You know how people say the guy at the door had to be an idiot because the way he acted and things he did in the doorbell camera. But maybe we think he's an idiot, and maybe he really is an idiot, because it could be that the police know who it is or who they think it is. They just aren't ready to name a suspect or arrest somebody yet. Maybe they're keeping everything very, very quiet and doing a very good job of it. I mean, that's what I keep telling myself, although I do think it's crazy that somebody hasn't leaked. But maybe they fear, getting in trouble, losing their jobs if they did leak something. Of course, the FBI, they're good at not leaking most of the time, I guess. I'll give them that. But like maybe the people who work for Sheriff Nano's department, definitely don't want to leak. They fear getting fired or whatever. I don't know. It's just odd that there aren't more leaks, or even like leaks on purpose, like where the sheriff department purposely put out a certain leak to let somebody think they know more than they do, or like let the suspects make the suspects nervous or whatever. But it just seems like the media gets nothing from the sheriff's department or the FBI, which I understand the FBI, they always are more silent when they're investigating cases. But I think the sheriff's department would be a little more vocal, even though Sheriff Nano sucks as a spokesperson. Like he could have a spokesperson speak for him who's better at speaking with the public and just give out some information, even if it's nothing, like give a little press conference like once every couple of weeks or something and say something. But anyway, it is June 14th. We, the public, still have no idea where Nancy is, although some people think the law enforcement does. To me, that would be very hard for them to keep secret if they did. And the media and YouTubers are following them everywhere, or were in the beginning. Like it looks like somebody would already have figured out that if they did know where she was. And then, could it be that they're on to Annie and Tommaso and they're investigating them and spying on them and stuff, and they know probably where they put her body or what happened to her body, but they can't let them know that yet? Maybe they're trying to see if, some perps, let's say Annie and Tommaso did something to Nancy, some perps will return to the body to try to rehide it or rebury it somewhere else if they think the heat is on. Are they watching Annie and Tommaso to see if they go to where Nancy's body could be? Stuff like that. I'm just purely speculating here. I have no sources or no inside information. I'm just thinking about other cases where like police didn't know where a body was, but they had an idea of who did something to somebody. So then they would, you know, spy on them. And sometimes it took a good long time, but they would spy on them, but let them think they weren't looking at them as suspects anymore. And then that person would go back to the location of the body, like to move the body somewhere else or to find the weapon that they used in murdering somebody. So maybe the police are, they know it's obvious to them who did it. They have evidence, but they need more. And because this case involves a high profile family, because of Savannah, they want to make sure all their ducks are in a row before they even dare say to the public the name of a suspect. It's just the way our society works, unfortunately. When rich people or famous people are involved in high profile cases, let's say whether it's like O.J. Simpson or just all the other like famous Hollywood people who've been arrested for murders, which I can't think of their names right now, but there's been several, that it just seems that police are much more thorough and much more not as eager to just arrest suddenly because they want to make sure, because they know, rich people can afford better lawyers, defense attorneys, that they know that the defense, they could have a whole, like a O.J. Simpson did, a whole dream team of lawyers that they got to go to court with. And so they want to make sure everything's perfect before they arrest somebody and charge somebody and, put them out there in the media as the person who did this. And let's think about it. If you're Savannah and you're rich and you have all these resources and they try to arrest somebody in your own family for this, what do you do? Do you go along with it or do you push back because you don't want to believe that your possibly a sibling could have been involved in the murder of your mother? Or do you think, okay, well, my sister was involved, but I don't want to go against my sister, so I'm just going to, hire the best attorneys I can for her and help her through this? Because Savannah's also an aunt. She's got a nephew. What happens to the nephew? If, let's say, Annie and Tommaso did do this and they got arrested, sent to prison, what happens to their son? Where does he go to live? With his uncle or aunt, his Aunt Savannah or Uncle Cameron? Or so this just if the family is involved, this is a whole big mess. But it happens a lot in our country, unfortunately. But because this involves a well-known person like Savannah, it's just going to seem like an even bigger mess. But actually, it's not that unusual. When people commit crimes and they have children, their children get either sent off with other family members or into foster homes or whatever. So this case seems like a big mess, but maybe we're just not privy to everything that's going on in this case. And maybe Sheriff Nanos will end up not being the big idiot like we think he is, even though he has a bad past and should not be a sheriff, in my opinion. Maybe he's not a total idiot when it comes to investigating crimes, and he is, allowing the detectives and the FBI to do their investigating and get all the facts in this case. That's my hope. But as on the screen here is a Google Maps view of Nancy's house. And as you can see, this is the loop in front of the house in the front door area. And up here is in this front door area is where the blood was or is, and where they think, or some people think, that she was carried out or taken out of her home this way. But to my understanding, the family, like Annie and Tommaso, when they came over, they would always come up to this way to the garage area. So, the front doorbell camera may not always see cars or at all way over here coming up to the garage area. And then I don't know what other cameras for on the home, but let's say if the front doorbell camera wouldn't necessarily see a vehicle over here, and if it came from the left here and turned right into the driveway, the front doorbell camera, this camera that was there that got destroyed by the perp we saw on the front doorstep, may not have seen a vehicle on this side of the home and over here. And I'm not sure because I've heard a lot of different stories. I don't know exactly what other cameras were on the home and what they found in the garage area. But apparently, Tommaso dropped Nancy off in the garage, and the garage door went up, and a couple minutes later it went back down. And we don't know if Tommaso was telling the truth. Then he left, or was he in the home with Nancy at that time? And we don't know why the back doors were propped open, because that's the reports I've heard. So if that's true, why they were propped open and why there was blood on the front doorsteps, why was Nancy at some point at the front door, we just don't know. But hopefully the police have more information, more video, more technological evidence than what they've given us. Maybe they plainly and clearly can see a vehicle, because why wouldn't they put out more information about a vehicle? Maybe they already know, and maybe it's a vehicle involving the family or some other perp. Maybe it's somebody totally different who we don't know about that did this, and they need to find that person and get evidence against that person, and so they're just not releasing any information about the vehicles, because normally they would want the public to help find a certain vehicle, a certain tag, but they're not coming out with anything they want the public to do anymore, really. So makes me think maybe they're on the right track and they're going to solve this case sooner rather than later. In other words, like it won't be years, like I think Sheriff Nano said at one point. It'll be months, hopefully just days, but maybe months or weeks and not years and not never. So that's basically all I have on this case. I mean, if you watch the true crime channels, a lot of people are leaning toward, or it seems like, they're leaning toward the family, which of course makes sense. It did from day one. But for whatever reason, and just think about it, it is June 14th. This happened February 1st, and Annie and Tommaso still have not come out publicly searching for their mother in a public way. And that is just so odd to me, and I stand by that. That is being odd. I don't care how shy you are, how rich you are. Like even if Savannah said, I'll handle this. I'm the public figure in this family. I'll handle all this or whatever, the public relations. It's your mother. I mean, I just don't, it's just so odd to me that Annie hasn't given an interview or formed a search party, because she lives right in that area. Maybe Savannah had to go back to New York, and Cameron had to go back to wherever he lives in Virginia or Vermont or some other state. I mean, she's right there. It's like every day I'd be just, doing search parties or something. Especially to my understanding, she doesn't have like a 9-to-5 job or whatever. I could be wrong. I don't know. But also I've read that she and Tommaso are behind in their home taxes, which is none of my business. A lot of people are. It doesn't mean they're bad people, whatever. But it does go to show that they are having some serious financial issues, because I think it's more than 1 year behind in tax. I could be wrong. I don't know how the Arizona property taxes work, but I do know that they're behind in their taxes because you can see that online, and YouTube YouTubers have gone online and checked that. So, I mean, is Savannah going to pay their taxes for them? Are they in dire straits? Are they planning on maybe selling off some of their mother stuff to get money to pay their taxes? Just looks so suspicious that they were having financial troubles. And the day that Nancy goes over there to visit with them, that same night, she goes missing. So did they have some kind of argument or dispute? Maybe it didn't involve Annie, maybe Tommaso. He took her home and he was angry. Did he take his anger out on his mother-in-law and do something to her, and Annie didn't know about it, didn't witness it? I don't know. But hopefully soon this case will be solved, because it is a giant mystery now. But I'm hoping it's like I think. I think the authorities know a lot more, and that it's not really much of a mystery to them anymore. They're just getting the facts and the evidence. So hopefully soon we'll know. But as of June 14th, 2026, Nancy Guthrie is still missing. So, of course, if you know anything, call the FBI tip line and give them the information. Because even if it seems like the children aren't out there searching for Nancy, I know a lot of other people look at Nancy like their own mother or grandmother, and they think more should be being done by the family. So if you have any information at all, contact the FBI. And there is a huge reward. Was it 1 million or 1.2 million? So there's every reason in the world to give the information to the authorities so that this case can be solved.